What's up, everyone? This is Didi here. Sorry about not posting often enough because my own company is went through a very interesting stage and got a scale and got a lot of other work-related stuff to do. But I went online and in my Discord community, I found a lot of people are still very confused about this whole MMAT and MMTLP situation. So I'm just gonna clarify some of the stuff that a lot of YouTubers didn't realize or didn't really talk about. One thing you have to understand is getting MMTLP out of the balance sheet of MMAT is actually working for, like, in the favor of metamaterial itself. Because if you go look at what MMTLP actually carries, they carry a lot of loss, they carry a lot of speculations, they carry a lot of negative situations on the balance sheet. That means they have negative asset and a lot of liability. So then when MMTLP is separated, or in this case got spun off or spin off out of MMAT, that actually makes the intrinsic value of MMAT in terms of its core business went up. So it's actually very beneficial for MMAT, but at the same time, it also wrote off a bunch of oil-related assets from MMAT's balance sheet, which sort of balanced it out. But depending on what kind of source you're reading, how much oil do you really believe that is under there, which I'm very not positive about how much oil they actually have. The true valuation of MMTLP is actually lower than when it was traded, when you guys think it's a huge squeeze. But in reality, short squeezing actually does not really exist in the pink market. So we're getting into our second point, is the pink sheet market. For those of you who don't know, the pink sheet market actually went through several legislative or regulatory changes over the past few years, and then the significant change within the pink sheet or OTC market actually promotes a very interesting situation, which is the deregulation of the pink sheet makes pink sheets investors very gullible, which means you actually don't have any protection when you invest in any of the pink sheet stocks. It's like, investing in penny stock. Remember Wolf of Wall Street? They start buying a bunch of them, and then they the reason why broker will make money is basically by charging commission. In this case, the underlying math didn't change, it's the formality changes, which means if you're buying a lot of pink sheet stock, essentially who's going to make the money is the market makers, because they are the ones who provide the platform for you to buy and sell those stocks. But in reality, short selling pink sheet stocks is actually not viable. That's why all of the people who believe that you're going to get short squeeze, or the stocks in the short squeeze, is absolutely impossible. All right, let's get into why it's unviable and it's almost impossible to short pink sheet stock. Because in order for you to really short sell those things, you have to have a specific or very detailed count of the shares that's actually outstanding or in this float. In this case, there's literally zero regulatory oversight. So then for market makers to be able to short sell those stocks without getting into any trouble later on, they have to be very prudent of who they short sell those things to, or granting the rights of short selling to someone. So in this case, if they really want to avoid a huge lawsuit, or they probably should, because there is going to be a regulatory risk compliance department within those market making groups, right? So then what they would typically do is they would evaluate the risk of giving someone the authority to do the short selling, and whether they can provide the collateral and interest of short selling the stock, and they will do a very detailed calculation of that. And in reality, for a penny stock or for a low volume stock like MMTLP, it's really hard for the management to really make the decision of the management of the which is market maker, to make the decision of, hey, we're going to allow short selling in this. Which in reality, if you go, and I don't know if any of you actually have the ability to short sell on your account when MMTLP is actually traded over the counter in a pink sheet market, it's actually almost impossible to short selling it. So then it begs to the question of where does all of this misconception of short selling come from online? I honestly don't know. People just don't know enough to understand how it actually works in the real world. And then they think, and another thing that you need to consider is all of the big pricing movement by the end, before it actually got spun out, is basically the reason why it can go as high as it went is because there are not a lot of people continuously short selling it. Do you know why? Because short sellers are very afraid of two events in terms of short selling. One is liquidation event, and the other one is basically what we called settlement event. In this case, liquidation event and settlement event almost happens on the same day, but because it's traded on an OTC market, the pink sheet, that means there's always going to be like brokerage, like there's going to be like a huge or long interim period of time. But for the short sellers, it's actually not good because before like the complete liquidation or settlement, their collateral and their money are still going to be tied up in the short selling of the stock. So in my opinion, if they're actually someone who's smart, they would never short sell on a stock like MMTLP on the pink sheet. What they would do is they would pretend that there's short interest, which you can do with options, and then essentially they fake the short selling situation, and then they induce the retail investor to buy a bunch of them in a very short period of time to drag along the prices, and then they will liquidate opposing options and wait until expiration date of the cheap options that they set up to fake the short selling situation. In reality, if there's actually going to be, and we're going to get into another point, which is class action lawsuit. In reality, if there's even going to be basis for a establishment of a class action lawsuit, the amount of money that individual investors can get back is going to be extremely minimal due to the economic situation and due to how the securities are set up on the OTC market. Like I said before, it's a horrible idea for you guys to really just FOMO way up the MMTLP because there's not a lot of regulatory oversight, and most likely all your money is going to be lost during this transaction. And hopefully this video is helpful. Hopefully I'm not spreading too much of fear, I guess. But in reality, I was right all along. And again, one of the main incentives for George or anyone to really do this spin-off is because the asset in question is the oil, which is in NextBridge right now because it's already being spun off. So that means if all of the assets are already not the asset of a metamaterial, then metamaterial does not have legal obligation to really disclose anything or to do anything with those assets. So then that means they're clean. So even if there's going to be a investigation or anything related to MMATLP, people that is basically entitled of compensation, or I don't know, like investment damage compensation. There's an actual word for it. Sorry, I'm not an attorney. And again, I'm not a financial advisor, so do not give financial advices. But here's just like from my own experience or from all of the cases that I dealt with on how it will work is essentially if you sue NextBridge, you can only get the money out of NextBridge. But because you sue NextBridge, then you sue them as a class action lawsuit of the common stockholders, that means your liquidation preferences when they file bankruptcy or they decide to really liquidate is going to be on the lowest liquidation preferences. That means they have to pay back the amount of money they own Maccabee first and everybody on a debt balance sheet first, and then it's to you. And let's just say they actually, the oil, the land actually worth 32 million. There's a straight up 20 million debt that's there. So there's only going to be $12 million available for distribution, and then $12 million, and you have 165 million shares that needs to be compensated, or even with some fraud allegation or whatever. I'm not saying there is, because I'm out of it, right? So then if you do the math, it's gonna be penny on the dollar, man. But anyways, I feel really sad that this thing happened. But again, it's been a couple of months. I've just been focusing a lot on my work. If you guys want more of these contents, if you have any questions, comment down below, and see you guys on the upside.